There it
Hello,
is.
ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen. Robert Swarwood here. Tonight, I am joined by a best-selling author of over a half dozen novels whose work has been translated in over 20 languages. Her most recent novel, Blade, was just recently released. That's right. It's your favorite writer and mine, Wendy Walker. Wendy, how the heck are ya?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, obviously, we want to talk about the new novel. Congratulations. This recently
Thank
came out.
you.
I guess it was an Amazon first read, so it's been out an extra month longer than the actual
Yes.
came out,
Yeah,
but it
exactly.
just
Yeah.
recently came out this month, so a couple days ago. So, we
Yes.
definitely want to talk about this. I also want to talk about The Room Next Door, which was your most recent Audible original that came out in the
Yes.
fall. You have so many, how many
Things going
titles?
on.
Yeah, has this been a have you ever really had like your publication schedule has usually been like year to year, or have you
It
had
was.
more than two
Yeah.
times within a year?
Yeah. So it was year to year from what, 16, 17, 18, 19. Maybe I skipped a year, then it was or 2020. And then 21 was American Girl. And then it was I kind of one a year, but then I haven't had a print book out in 2.5 years. But in that time I've had two Audible originals. So it's been ten thrillers in 10 years. So that I can say. Um,
Okay.
so it's averaged out to one a year, including the Audible originals.
Yeah. Well, I know we probably talked about this before, but let's talk about it again. So these Audible
Yeah.
originals, you did one novella that was pretty traditional, very narrative, but the rest of them have been what I know the Audible folks like to call enhanced audiobooks. So it's not necessarily
Yeah.
like a radio drama type thing where you still have a traditional narrative, but then they have some sound effects or whatever else. When you approach those, like let's talk about The Room Next Door. And I guess for people who
Yeah.
have not listened to it yet, which I can't imagine they haven't, you go on Amazon, you see all the reviews. But tell people really quick, like, what's The Room Next Door about?
So the room next door is it's about three friends who were friends in high school, and that was 15 years ago. And Well, it's hard to describe it without giving too much away, but 15 years ago, one of them disappeared at a party on the beach. And now we have one of the remaining friends is a cop in the local town, and the other one has just moved back with her wealthy husband, and she is having an affair, and she and her lover hear sounds of violence in the room next door in this exclusive little hotel that's hidden away from their town and in the woods. And so the storylines converge. What is heard in the room next door, and something else going on in the town that the cop is investigating, and the backstory from 15 years ago. So we have these three stories that are all part of the same bigger story, and you get three narrators. It's really fun because um, we have Julia Whalen, Elizabeth Evans, who are both two, world-renowned audio performers, and BB Wood, who is a really talented actress and now an audio book performer as well. And so we have these three narrations telling different parts of the story, and they intertwine at different parts of the book. It's really fun. It sounds complicated, but it's written in a way, like you said, it's I call it audio first. So it was written just for audio. Instead of it being written for print and then performed in audio, it was written only for audio. And it would not read very well as a novel because it's very conversational. There's no traditional dialogue, and you hear the voices. We have a cast of 33 actors in this one book, and you hear the voices of all of them in dialogue, little pops of dialogue that are woven in throughout longer stretches of narration, and we tie that together with some subtle sound effects, some transitional music here and there. It's not fully produced like some Audible originals that are completely produced start to finish with sound, in at every second, and sound effects, sound, and all scripted. it's not like that. It's really a unique format that we tried out, and people seem to really like it. So it worked out. I wasn't sure when I wrote it. I had no idea, um, but it was kind of a bear to produce because no one had done that before. So we didn't have anything to really model it off of, and so we were just all weighing in on how it should go. It was actually a lot of fun. It's as writers, we don't really collaborate that much. So it was actually really fun to be involved in that process, as an executive producer of it as well.
Yeah. So you had done Mad Love previously, and
Yes.
what was the difference between Mad Love? Because I feel like that, because it's been a while. I mean, I guess it's been a well
Yeah.
over a year, but like it was kind of similar with sound effects or whatever else. But how was
Yeah.
this different from, I guess, Mad Love?
So Mad Love was, first of all, it's half as long. So Mad Love is about 4.5 hours, and Room Next Door, I think might even be over 10 hours. So it's a full length novel to listen to. So the length is different. And Mad Love was meant to be fully scripted. So we were going to try something fully scripted and fully produced. So we went in with that in mind. But I really needed the story to have backstory. The thing about audio is that when you're trying to tell backstory without any narration, you end up having these sort of clunky dialogue scenes. And I mean, I know everybody listening and you as well, you be watching a movie or a television show, and there'll be like a throwaway line like, well, Sergeant, you only got this job because so and so had, a heart attack and couldn't make it. And it's like, no, it's just this clunky moment where the viewer or the reader, the listener needs to know why this person is there. But the person knows why he's there, and the other person knows why he's there. But so they have this awkward conversation that would never happen in real life to get that backstory in. And so I felt like there was so much backstory in this, in Mad Love, that needed to be drawn out. So I snuck in some narration with a letter that this woman who's been shot and she's in a coma and she might die. We don't see her until the end of the book when she comes. Well, I won't give anything away, but we don't see her until the end of the book. But throughout it, we hear her voice because she's written a letter to her lawyer and left the letter for her lawyer, and just says, you'll know when to open this. And the lawyer thought, it's just something to be added to her will. Like, a lot of people will do that. But then when she's shot, her lawyer opens this letter and starts reading it to us, but then it goes into the voice of the woman. So you get to hear Jen Talcott, like her voice, reading this letter. And then Julia Whalen is in that as well, and she is the lawyer. So she also gives us some backstory and sets up the scenes. But then you'll go to another chapter and it'll be fully scripted, fully produced, start to finish. So that structure was, I mean, if you looked at the script, you'd be like, what the heck is this? Because it's got like these narrative passages, then all of a sudden there's like all this dialogue and music and sound effects. But Room Next Door, very clear, like chapter to chapter, different points of view. You go from Brooke to Carrie to Eve, the three friends. They alternate this in the same order throughout the book. But within the chapters, when you'll just break away to like a little scripted, like mini scene almost in places where it felt appropriate. So there are no chapters that are fully scripted and fully produced. They are all this sort of weave of narration and little scripted moments. So
Yeah.
I think it makes it really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely it felt like there was the narration, and then usually when you would have dialogue between the characters, that's when we would get
Yes.
the characters, the more, I guess, quote unquote scripted aspects of it. So remind
Yeah.
me, are you somebody who really outlines, or just you really just kind of sit down with the idea and go from there, or is it a little bit of
No,
mixture of
I
both?
outline. I outline, but it's and people who sort of, sort of diss on outlining or like, well, you can't, then you don't leave room for the characters to grow or for ideas to come and organic, unraveling of the story. So it's not outlined like, oh, paint by numbers or write by numbers. It's just I make sure I make a list of all the disclosures, I call them, things that have to happen in the story, and then I put them in the right order. Like this has to happen before this, or this is something that the reader or the listener needs to know at this point in time. So there's like a progression of action, and then there's a progression of disclosures of facts. And so sometimes you'll get a disclosure about a piece of backstory in a chapter where they're doing something totally unrelated. But it's, and then in each chapter, I figure out how to accomplish that. So, okay, what could happen in this chapter where these two can be discussing this thing that happened in the past, or where this character might reflect on something from the past. So it's always a weave of moving forward, looking back, because my books always have backstory that's brought in. And so I have my list of disclosures, and then I'll break it out chapter by chapter. And it's a really short outline. And maybe for a full-length novel, maybe it'll be 10 pages, but it's just really chapter by chapter what happens. And the last book I wrote, it was a grid. I did like a grid, like on an Excel spreadsheet, because I had three timelines that were woven into all like present and then two backstory portions. And so each chapter I wrote down what was being disclosed from each time frame. And so that's all. And then I sit down to write, and I figure out, the setting and what's going to happen in that chapter and what facts are going to be disclosed. And I figure out how it'll happen naturally. And then I always end up like, oh, wow, this is a natural place for her to be, giving us some of her thoughts about XYZ. And so then I might move that, or it might be something totally new that I didn't even think I was going to put in the book. And that's where the characters come to life, is in the writing process. But I feel like if I don't know, the times I've tried to just write, I end up in like the same scene for 50 pages because I keep finding stuff to weave in and out. Like it's like becomes this long like conversation that the character's having with the reader, but she's still in like, in the shopping aisle at Walmart or something. She hasn't
Yeah.
moved. So then it's interesting to me because she's having all these thoughts and backstory reflections and whatever, but the plot's not moving. So I need to have my outline so I know like, okay, this is all that's happening, and we got to move on and keep things moving. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
the going back to the Audible or the enhanced Audible or the audiobooks, do you I mean, I guess when you're doing it with the sound effects and do you put in where you feel like there should be music, or is that stuff that comes through more the production side when you're
Yeah.
going like when you're talking to the editor and the producer? Do you guys bounce ideas off about like, oh, maybe that we should use a sound effect here instead of maybe in the in the narrative you had added, I don't know, a phone ringing or whatever else, but they're
Yeah.
like, oh no, we should use that instead. We should do a sound effect of a phone ringing.
So with Mad Love, I wrote in, I didn't write in music, but I wrote in everywhere I thought there should be a sound effect, because in that piece, sound effects actually told part of the story. So sometimes you'd have a sound effect and I wouldn't have anything around it, like, oh, a boat is coming into the dock or something. I would just put that as a sound effect. We hear the boat come in, so that information is conveyed to the listener. With The Room Next Door, because it's mostly narration, I only put in sound effects where it was necessary, because I wasn't where, what I mean, where it was necessary to disclose a fact to the listener. So like a boat. So if I don't have the character saying, I'm watching the boat come in, um, and I needed that to be known to the listener, then I would put in sound effect here for the boat. But very few directions for sound effects in The Room Next Door. But then when we were going through it, we had the sound guys just take a stab at it. Like, you read it, just see. We don't want we don't want everything described in the narration to be have a sound effect like, oh, I walked across the room and, poured myself a drink. Like, should that have footsteps and ice and something pouring, or should that just not have it?
Yeah.
And every single one, because it wasn't going to be fully produced, each one became a decision. So it was really like just the three of us, the three producers listening. We had a spreadsheet of almost everything that we couldn't decide on after the sound effects people took a stab at it, and then it was like, okay, what the ones we weren't sure about, we all had an opinion, and sometimes it was two against one, and then there was and or then it was would be the where we would go, and it was just like voting basically, because we had different views on it. So it became just sort of trusting each other and what we thought sounded good. And if one of us felt really strongly about something, then we would fight for it and say, I really, really disagree. And then, would give some deference to that opinion, and would try it. And we listened to it again. I must have listened to it at least four times, all the way through. And then in addition to like listening to little snippets of scenes. So it was really a work of art in the end, the sound effects. And now I'm going into writing another one, and I'm not sure, I have to sit down with the producer and talk about what we want to accomplish with this one, and what if we want to do the same thing as Room Next Door, or play around with something different. So it's really, I find it very creative and fun,
Yeah.
that piece of it, in addition to the story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
fascinating because you definitely, I mean, as an audiobook listener, you don't want to do things that are going to be distracting, that are going to pull the listener out of the story, or all of a sudden there's something that just is a little jarring. It has to be
yeah,
kind of just really seamlessly in there. And
yes.
yeah, no, I mean, it was a really, really well done production.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to ask you, but now I'm completely blanking. But let's go on to, no, what was I going to ask you? I don't remember. But let's go on to Blade.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Blade is your most recent, more traditional novel.
Yep.
However, there is some and it's not really giving anything away, but like, in between some of the chapters there, I guess, a
Yeah, they're little
transcript of
interview
things that
scenes.
go on.
Yeah. Yeah. A
Was
transcript of an
that, well,
interview.
first of all,
Yeah.
before we even get into this, can you talk a little bit, I guess, about like what's the book about?
Yeah, so Blade is set in the world of competitive figure skating, and I was a competitive figure skater, so I guess finally time for me to dive in and mine some of that information and craft a novel from it. Uh, so it's about a 15-year-old skater in this very elite training facility in Colorado, and an assistant coach has been murdered, and the evidence, it's very new, but the evidence is pointing towards her, and her story is not adding up, but she won't say anything else. And her mother, she lives there in a dormitory by her, with other skaters, and her mother comes um, in and calls on this lawyer who specializes in adolescent and children defendants of violent crimes. And she also happens to be a former skater from the same facility. So she comes back after 14 years of being away to try to figure out what happened to this girl, why she's not telling us a story that makes sense, and ultimately to try to figure out who killed this coach before this girl is charged with first degree murder. And the lawyer's name is Anna, and Anna has a dark backstory at the skating facility, which is called the Palace. So most of the story revolves around Anna in the past, 14 years ago, and in the present now, as she's trying to figure out who killed this coach. So we have a split time frame, and then these little chapters that are woven in that are interviews that are sort of in taking place after the fact, like months down the line when the prosecutor is interviewing witnesses to build a case. We don't know who the case is against. We just know they're little snippets of interviews, and that I use that mechanism again to bring in information that I needed the reader to know, and that didn't really have a place in the other points of view.
Yeah. Well, let's put a pin in that because I definitely want to talk more about the book. But before we do that, like you mentioned, as a girl, you were a competitive figure skater. You're a great publicist, including, when they send the books out or whatever else, they include some pictures of you, Wendy Walker on the ice, then and now.
Yeah,
So, and then there's like there's this like I guess like part of like a news article, but
the
it's very, very
article,
small.
yeah.
It's hard to see, but the headline
Skater
says
gives
skater
up
gives
race
up
for the
race
gold.
for the gold.
I know.
Before we get into that, I guess like when did you want to, I mean, like at what age did you decide like this is something I want to
Yeah.
do? Because um it's obviously not easy.
I mean, I don't remember my childhood before I was skating. So I was pretty young. And my childhood, mostly what I think about is that I wanted to skate and I wanted to go to the Olympics. That's every skater, that's their dream. I mean, we're seeing it now, right? We're watching the Olympics and we see skaters who have, are coming back after retiring, are coming back, in their 30s and their late 20s, and just to try one more time for an Olympic medal or just one more time to get to the Olympics. So it's almost always your dream when you start out as a young skater. And then when I was 13, for many reasons, family reasons, and just also where I was at in the sport, I went to live in Colorado at a training facility with an Olympic level coach. And I lived in a dorm and I had very much a lot of the structural experience that I gave to my characters in Blade. So it's a fictional story, but I found what was most interesting when I looked back on my experience, what was most interesting and unique about it was the fact that I did live in this dorm away from my parents year round. There were very few of us who did that. And what that did to me psychologically, in addition to the pressures of the sport and all of the training and the competitiveness and the mothers in the stands who aren't always the nicest people, and I added in a narcissistic coach who was sort of mentally and emotionally abusive to the skaters, which my coach was not. So there's a lot of fiction in it, but I structured it around my experience because I felt like that was where I could write most authentically, and also I felt like it was really a unique experience that would be interesting.
So, I mean, in the back of your head was the idea of the Olympics kind of the dream or like the ultimate goal?
Always, always. And when that dream was gone, I quit. I mean, it was like, it was slow and painful coming to that realization because it's like when that's all you know and all you recognize in yourself, um, and you're young, right? The young teenage brain, it's very hard. It's like being in a bad relationship where you kind of know it's not a good relationship and you think this relationship might not continue, but it's still going on. So, you know, it becomes this thing that you don't know how to get out of and you don't really want to get out of it, but I don't know, it's really difficult at that age. And there's always this like, oh, if I can just try harder, or maybe tomorrow I'll start landing triple jumps. That was my problem, is I just could not land triples. And I just didn't, for whatever reason, I had beautiful double jumps, but the mechanics of my body and my height and also what was going on in my brain on takeoffs, just was not able to get the height and the speed and the torque or whatever in the air to make those rotations. So,
Yeah.
and that was the name of the game in the sport at the time. So I saw the writing on the wall that I was not going to keep progressing, and I probably stayed a year too long. But then, when I got out, I never looked back.
Yeah. So part of the book deals with it's what they call fear training. Is that something
Yeah,
that you made up, or was that actually part of
yeah.
the actual training when you skate?
Well, I hope it's something I made up, part of it. But the part one, there's sort of two pieces to it, and it's kind of fun talking about this while we're all watching the Olympics. I mean, we're about to watch the men in the long program and the women. I don't know when everyone is going to be seeing this, but they're doing triples and quads now, and there are two components of fear in figure skating. The first one is common, I think, to almost every sport and any endeavor where you're in front of an audience and where this moment counts. Like even sitting for an exam, like I remember sitting for the bar exam and having a rush of adrenaline. And I was like, oh my God, I can't think. And, had to like breathe and calm down. So anytime that that this is it, this moment is all that matters, like all this training, everything, your whole life is right now, these 4 minutes. And that fear is definitely is addressed. I think all athletes now, they have, all different techniques for calming the brain down. It's a natural thing to happen. Your brain goes into fight or flight, you get a rush of adrenaline, and then none of the mechanics work between brain and body. The what we call muscle memory. We see it. You see it in every sport where you just the way that the brain and the muscles are all the nerves from the muscles to the brain are all communicating. It's learned. But if you add in adrenaline and cortisol to the chemicals in your brain, it disrupts the the transmission of all those signals. It just does. And that, like, you'll hear the commentators say your legs get stiff and you lose your confidence or your timing is off. And that's all because you've lost the natural flow of these signals between brain and body. So that fear training absolutely goes on in all different, techniques. But the other component that I added in is when you're trying to learn these jumps. So if you ever wondered like how you go from a single to a double to a triple to a quad, the only way that I've ever seen or known to learn one is to jump into the air the way you normally would, and instead of coming out in your landing, breaking out for your landing the way you normally do, just making yourself hold on tight because you don't know yet. You're not spotting. You're going too fast to be, like spotting, like a ballerina, for example. So you can't count the rotations. It's a split second that you're in the air. So you just hold on as tight as you can until you reach the ice. And you might land on a blade and you might open instinctively and be like, whoa, I just landed a triple or a quad. Or you might just hit and fall. And so you know that that's what's going to happen. So until you get confidence in landing that jump, the fear of falling is just part of learning these jumps. And so I started to think about a way that this coach could be kind of abusive with these girls. And that was what came to mind. Like, she's going to have this fear training where she essentially is trying to make the girls more afraid of her losing her approval, maybe losing their spot at the palace, but it's not nurturing. It's the opposite of that. And so I did some research actually into different training techniques in the military, also techniques that are used in cults to get everybody to stay with the program and do crazy things and follow the leader, basically. And I drew from those, and I gave all of those techniques to this coach, who then torments the girls with the fear training. So
Yeah.
yeah, but hopefully that doesn't happen in any rinks in real life.
Well, I want to talk about the falling aspect. Obviously, I mean, yes, you watch the Olympics now, people are wearing jumpsuits or whatever they're called, like next to nothing.
Hmm.
But like when you're starting out, like are you wearing like pads? I mean, because I mean you're essentially on this hard.
Yeah.
I mean people are probably breaking bones here
Yeah.
and there. So like are you
Yep.
wearing any type of protective gear just like in the training aspect or just no?
No, I mean, they had these crash pads. It looked like an adult diaper with like it had a little bit of padding on it. But I mean, that protected a little bit of your tailbone. I mean, I don't think it really helped at all, honestly. But no. because if you're wearing that kind of stuff, you're going to be slowing yourself down in the air when you're to
Yeah.
spinning and trying to make those rotations. And then when you take it off, the dynamics are going to be different as well. So, I mean, you're spinning fast, even when you're doing a spin, just on the ice spin, like the sit spins and the camel spins and all those, you're going so fast, like it's like your tears will get sucked out of your eyes, you'll be like spinning in a circle, and if your eyes are watering, you'll see the water going around your head, as it's crazy how fast you're going. But yeah, so you don't want to slow that down when you're trying to make those rotations. So no, you're not wearing anything. They have like harnesses that I think they still use them, where the coach is there and like tries to grab it right before you fall, but it also that messes up your all of your rhythm too. So when you take the harness off, it's like it's just a different, it's just different. And I'd never found them very effective. So it's really just going for it.
Yeah. How about like just the history of figure skating? I mean, if you think about it, it's a crazy concept to just have these people on these blades just flying through the air. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, look at
like I don't know,
skiing
like
too.
where did
I
that come
mean,
about
yeah,
from?
like luge and I guess it's from
Well,
sledding, but
really, all of
skiing
Winter
too.
Olympics is like designed for people to die, it seems
I
like.
know, right?
But I mean,
Ski jumping. Oh
specifically
my
this
gosh.
one, I mean, obviously, I
Yeah.
imagine ice skating was around for a while, and then someone came up with the idea, like,
Yeah.
let's, create a
Well,
sport out
I
of
think if
this.
you keep doing it and then you realize, oh, you can, I'm sure it just evolved over time. You realize the things you can do, and then somebody does something else. And yeah, but it has evolved. It used to be one of the main parts of the competition were these figure eights where you would go on one foot and you'd slowly make figure eights that were, I think it's 1 1/3 of your height. And I can't remember the exact dynamics, but the circles would have to be exactly the same. And sometimes there would be three circles, and then sometimes you do these mini circles called loops, and then you do loops within them. It's just um like so many things. You do little turns in between them, and it's all very slow, and you trace over them 3 times, and the judges come and they measure, they trace. It doesn't matter what you look like when you do it. They just care about what marks you leave on the ice. And that used to be 1/3 of your score. So like years ago, and that's actually, I was very good at those, but then they got rid of them. And that was another reason that I knew I was not going to ever make it in the sport. But so that is gone now. Now it's because of audience, right? That's really boring to watch on TV. So television
Yeah.
kind of got rid of that. And now I just, they've now tried to do a lot of things with the point system. So it's evolved definitely. But what's really interesting is watching the progression of the jumps in the singles events, because it used to be like when I was skating many years ago, women all had maybe one triple. That was good. One or two triples, you could get to the Olympics. Like the 1980 Olympics, one triple or maybe two, could get on the podium. Now the women all have all the triples except the triple axel. Very few have the triple axel, and that has been the case. Oh my gosh. For, I don't know, 40 years or something, where very few women can land a triple axel. The men have progressed from doing all the triples to now doing all of the quads, but only one man can do a quad axel. So it's been interesting to see the progression and like the limitations, the physical limitations um, for the ability to do these jumps.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it. I saw, I feel like there's a lot of memes going around because of the Olympics now. I think I sent you
Yeah.
a reel of, some guy like eating ice cream and being like, somebody like misses the triple axel and they're just like, whatever. Because it's like most normal people, I guess they understand how hard it is, but at the same time, I guess they don't really understand just
Yeah.
how hard it is to like do
Yeah.
one of these things just, to, I guess, a perfect score.
Yeah. Yeah, they're hard. It's a hard sport. It really truly is. So,
Yeah.
but I think I
So
don't know, people seem to be enjoying watching it, so that's
yeah.
really good.
So okay, so as a girl, you were doing this, and then you realized the Olympics weren't really in the cards, and did you stop skating for a while, or like was there a period of time where you just
Yes.
weren't skating, and then when I know on social media
Yeah.
you have videos of yourself skiing again, like was there a long time in between, and then I guess when you started to ski again, or not ski, when you started to skate again, like was it a little bit difficult at first, or was it kind of like riding a bike
Yeah.
where you just immediately got right back into the
No.
rhythm of it?
So for years, I would go back on the ice just, I don't know, whenever. Like friends would want to go skating, or like in college, my best friend started a skating club. She was a former skater as well. And so once a week I started skating and I got all my jumps back and I was like, oh, cool, whatever. And then when I had kids and I taught all of them to skate enough, they didn't really love it, but I taught them enough to be able to do it socially. And I always would get back on and it was just like that. I'd be able to stroke around and do crossovers and maybe a couple spins. I mean, I, lost the ability to do jumps. But I felt like I could if I tried. I mean, I felt like I had that, muscle memory was all still right there. But then after I went back when I was writing the book, I went back through all my pictures, and the last time I skated was like 15 years ago. And I thought I was like, well, I should get back on the ice because I really want to be able to describe what, the feeling. And I want to just, not that I didn't remember, but I just wanted something fresh, and I thought it would be a good thing to do. And I stepped on the ice and I was shocked. I mean, I felt like there was something wrong with my blades or something wrong with the ice. And I looked up at my boyfriend like, something's not right, and he's a hockey player. So he was like, keep going, keep going. And so I kept skating but it took me like a couple minutes before I got the connections back. It was like the memory of how to do it was lost. It was like forgetting someone's name that you haven't seen in 15 years. And, you sort of, someone starts giving you the context of where you knew that person. And you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, now I remember. And that's what it felt like. Like, okay, now I remember. Okay, all right. All of these muscles have to work to balance on this blade, and it's a lot of muscles that are all, working together. So, and I think also, in between I've been doing yoga, which is moving your body, but different balancing, different muscles and also running. So I don't know if those things impacted it as well, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
we talked before about how you had gotten into writing. Obviously, I don't want to spend time on that. People can go find that old video there.
yeah.
But because you're, I guess, known right now more as like a suspense thriller writer,
Yeah.
but that's not always what you had been writing. You had written other stuff, more, I guess, was it women's fiction or chick lit, where we call it?
It was, yeah, I mean, I know it was definitely not chick lit. For some reason, I can't write humor. I don't know why. I think I can be funny, but I'm not, I can't write it at all. So I was writing just stories about women, like,
Right.
in suburbia yeah, back in 2008, 2009. And then I stopped writing because they didn't do very well and I had to earn a living. So I started practicing law again. And but then I was like, oh, there was something about it that I thought I had my foot in the door. And if I could just come up with the right book at the right time, that I could maybe break through. And so I was advised by my agent at the time to try writing a thriller. I asked her, like, what do you want me to put on your desk that you can sell? Um,
Yeah.
and I had written a whole other book, an entirely new novel in the same genre of like just general fiction, focused on women characters. And she said, "Well, everybody wants the next Gone Girl." So I didn't even know what I knew. I had heard of the book, obviously, but I didn't really know what psychological thrillers were. So I kind of read a bunch and broke it down and sort of figured out like how they're told. And I took a story, a crime story that I'd had kicking around for years, and I told it in the fashion of a psychological thriller. And it was like, whoa, this is what I should have been writing all along. Like it just opened all of these doors for me, and I just have never looked back. So,
Yeah.
and I've
Well,
written about so many different things. I mean, I've written just domestic suspense. I've written about, a cop and crime, forensic psychologists. I've written about kidnappings and murder and, sexual assault and memory loss. And, within the realm of the psychological thriller, I think I've covered a really wide array of different subject matter, but told in that way, which I find just really, as a writer, I just really enjoy it.
right. But I guess what my question is, had you ever played around with the idea of doing anything with skating prior to that? Or I mean, having like, been such a big
Yeah.
part of your life, because they always say like write what you know. Like, had you
Yeah.
ever thought about maybe incorporating that with any other books previously, or
Not
just
not really not it really in fiction. I played around with something that was a little bit like memoirish and with the idea of maybe fictionalizing it, but it was just very straight on. Like the plot, it was just my story. And it was woven into the rest of my story as well, my childhood and my family story. And so, and it just not, it was a mess. And that was many years ago. And I just I never thought I would use skating in a novel. I never thought I would try to fictionalize it and write about that world with other characters. Um, so it just never, I don't know why. I thought that it would be hard to write about it without writing exactly what I experienced.
yeah.
Um,
So I guess
like,
what was the
yeah,
seed? Like what basically kind of got you to a place where you were decided? Because I mean, we've always had discussions how, usually unless you're Nora Roberts, when you're
yeah,
writing a book, it's going to be several months of your life, if not years. So
yeah.
like, what kind of got you to a place where you were like, okay, this is what I want my next book to be?
Well, it was my agent. So I had just started working with a new agent, and he looked at all my material and my life and all of my, abilities and everything, and just thought like this is an opportunity you haven't used. Like you know, you need to use like you should try to use it if you're comfortable doing it. And he really was instrumental in showing me a path to writing in that world with a fictional story. And that was the piece. I'm like, I don't know how to write about this unless I'm writing about me and what I experienced, because every person has such a unique experience that if I'm just writing about an ice rink and putting on your skates, like anyone can do that. Anyone, and they do. I mean, we see people write about skating all the time now, all the skating romances and other things that are written about skating just from doing research. Just like the rest of us, when we write about things we didn't experience, we do research and we can get pretty close. So I don't know, it's hard to see how I could do something that would be different from that, and add value to that genre. So he was really instrumental in helping me do that.
Yeah. I did wonder. I saw that you had dedicated the novel to
Yeah.
Dan, your agent Dan Conaway. So, oh well, that's good. Good on Dan. So I guess then you start writing the book. Did you know, like again, going back to that outline and structure, did you know that you would do the little transcripts, or did that come
No,
during the
no.
writing process where you decided to add those in?
Yeah, that came during. So this was the hardest book I've ever written, hands down. Like I wrote one draft of something. We ended up, it did not work, the structure of the story. So I started kind of from scratch with the same character and the same basic premise of a murder at this ice rink. Same character and also playing with backstory, but completely different structure. And then I just I felt like I wanted to up the stakes in the story and keep the suspense going. And by giving readers this little glimpse of, oh my gosh, I like something about a character that they could learn through this little section of a witness interview. Uh, I was able to do that. And what's really fun is having the experience of writing for Audible, I knew that if I did them as scripted moments, then we could record them as scripted moments with a full cast. So Blade has 12 cast members actually, even though the two points of view just have the two, Julia Whalen again and BB Wood again. And then these little interview sections have 12 different cast members. So if you like to listen, it gives you something that you can't get from the book, which is you get to hear the voices of all of the characters. It's
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I have a hardcover edition. I have the ebook because it was a first reads, and I listened to the audiobook. Just finished
Oh,
it
that's so
today, and
nice. Oh,
definitely,
thanks.
again, Julia Whalen,
So
she's always
great.
great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the audiobook, I would definitely recommend the audiobook for people to check out.
Yeah.
In the time remaining, as a skater, have there been any good skating movies or TV shows that you kind of feel like got it right?
Um, got it right. I think I mean this is going to date me for sure, but Ice Castles was like actually it was filmed at the same rink that I trained at, and she lived in the dorm that I lived in. So they got a lot of things right. It was a little uh, she got a little too glam at the end. But some of that I remember it being feeling like it was authentic when I watched it, and I was a skater at the time I watched it. The thing that I find really funny are all these skating hockey romances because I don't think I ever met a hockey player in all the years I was skating because we have totally different schedules and hockey players and I mean it may have changed now, but you have different skates, totally different skills. Um, and the view of hockey when I was a skater, like we didn't love the hockey players because you'd go into the locker room after they'd been training, it would smell so bad. All these like really sweat. I mean, it wasn't, just they're sweaty, right? It's a very sweaty sport and lots of equipment drenched in sweat. And it's like, you go in there with your skating dress, like, oh my God, this place. So totally different like a feel on hockey players get on the ice and they are tearing up that ice, skaters get on and they are trying not to tear up the ice, they're trying to not make that many marks because that means you're on a clean edge. So very different sports. So I find them fun. I mean, and it's kind of I think it's kind of fun, but I always kind of find that a little funny because I never met a hockey player when I was a figure skater.
Yeah. So then, to be clear, the cutting edge is not real to life.
I actually
Because that's the only
I
movie that comes
did
to
not
mind
watch it.
when I think of skating.
I know. I didn't see the cutting edge actually. I know. I should probably go back and
Oh
watch that.
wow. Yeah,
I
that's
know. I
I
know.
don't remember anything about it. I just remember the title and I remember it being about skating, which I think maybe has something to do with the Olympics. I don't know. It's been quite a
Yeah.
while. So, all right. Last thing I always want to ask, is there anything you've read, watched, listened to that you've really enjoyed that you would recommend to others?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really I loved listening to The Correspondent, which I know is
Hmm.
on everybody's list these days.
I
I
kind of feel
also
like if you're going to experience that book, it's better to listen to it than
I
read
loved it.
it.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
And I listened to The Wedding People over the summer, which I really loved as well. I tend to listen outside of my genre if I'm listening to an audio. Um, and gosh, what else have I read? I just read Mary Kubica's new book. It's Not Her, which is really great. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Actually, that reminds me of what I wanted to ask earlier about so you are someone obviously who listens to audiobooks because I feel
yeah,
like some writers don't listen to audiobooks, which they don't necessarily
yeah,
have to, but I feel like they should at least be aware that audiobooks exist and the importance of
yeah,
audiobooks because it's such a big part of of publishing at this point.
yeah.
But especially with the enhanced audio books that you've done, like, do you read your books aloud to kind of have a sense of like how it's actually going to sound?
It's interesting. I don't usually when I'm writing a traditional print novel. But when I wrote The Room Next Door, I actually dictated quite a bit of it. And actually, it was a bit of a fluke because I had just had back surgery and I really couldn't sit for very long and I couldn't stand and type at all. So I would just walk around dictating a chapter into my phone, excuse me, and then in like the notes app, and then I would copy it, put it into Word, and clean it up. And that, that like and then when I did a lot of it sitting down and I did a lot of revising sitting down after I was more healed. But I think that the writing it in dictation set me on a course for that book, the cadence of it and the way I was going to tell the story that made it very conversational. So I definitely will play around with that with the next one and see if I can just even to get started and find the cadence and the rhythm of the story and the narrative part of the story, which I think is so important in audio to get right. I really like them to sound like a conversation, like you're sitting across from someone who's telling you a story. And then, as we naturally weave in and out of parts of a story, we backtrack a little and go forward a little. And, so trying to make it feel like that to keep people's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, I, I know you have some upcoming stuff. I don't want to
Yeah.
give too much away, but is there anything you can kind of like, kind of like, keep some people in suspense of what to look out for in the future?
Yes, so I have another novel coming out next year. I don't have a title yet, but it's very different. It's a thriller, but I would say it's got a Romeo and Juliet story set in wealthy suburbia, but a very different take on the suburbs. It's not about, just being materialistic and it sort of gets into family dynamics and it's pretty, I think, moves pretty fast. It's got a fun structure that I kind of stumbled upon, and yeah, so I'm just starting edits for that. And I am going to be writing another Audible original, which is tentatively called The New Neighbors, and that is about a female executive who has ended an affair with a much younger man, only to find him moving in down the street with his new wife. So that's all I've got on that right now. But that is going to be the next probably 6 months of my life will be working on that, writing it, and yeah, thinking about it, writing it. So I'm excited.
And then ideally, this is going to be another enhanced audiobook and
Oh
not a
yeah.
straight narrative.
Oh yeah, no, this will be, I don't know. I haven't even had an initial meeting with my producer, but we have a track record now, which is so fun. So I can't wait to hear what he has cooking in his mind, and you know, we sort of, you know, come together and collaborate on structure and some basic outlines for the story, and then I will do a pretty detailed outline for that, which he and I will go over and agree on before I start writing, and then I just have to write the whole thing because I have to see where it goes and get it into shape, and then it goes. It's a different process writing those, but it is. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, lots of fun stuff ahead.
All right, Wendy. So, thank you for hanging out, everybody. The recent book is Blade. You can find it, obviously, Amazon Publishing from Thomas and Mercer. So, it's available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, audiobook. Again, narrated by Julia Whalen. And you said it was also who else was it again?
BB Wood and a full cast, a 12 member cast. But Julia Whalen is, yes, she's our lead and she's wonderful, really wonderful. So yeah,
So, oh, and
great.
again, if people wanted to find you online, where's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so wendywalkerbooks.com. And all my social handles are there, but I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and YouTube. So you
Okay,
can find me in all those places.
perfect. So, all right, Wendy, thank you so much, and we
Thank
will
you
see
so
everybody
much.
next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.